Today's episode of Overlooked History is about the long travels of Ibn Battuta. Ibn Battuta, whose full name Abu Abd Allah Muhammad ibn Abd Allah al-Wadi al-Tanaj ibn Battuta, was born February 24, 1304 in Tangier, Morocco. Many in his family were Islamic legal experts, and Battuta followed in their footsteps. He studied law in Moroccan schools and became a judge. In 1325, Battuta decided to take the pilgrimage to Mecca called the Hajj. The trip was expected to take 16 months. He traveled through North Africa, visiting various cities along the way. In 1326, Battuta reached Alexandria. He then traveled to Israel before reaching Mecca. Once he reached the city, he decided to venture further out into the world. Battuta traveled through Iraq and Persia, and returned to Mecca, but was still not satisfied. Around the year 1330, he reached modern-day Yemen. He boarded a ship and traveled south, past the Horn of Africa and towards Madagascar. He then sailed back up the coast and reached Mecca again. Battuta next traveled north, visiting present-day Turkey. He traveled to Constantinople and visited the Byzantine Emperor, and he saw the massive Hagia Sophia Church. From here he traveled east, going through parts of modern-day Russia. He then turned south, visiting Afghanistan. Battuta arrived in India in 1333. He had now been gone 8 years. While in India, Battuta became a judge in the court of Sultan Muhammad bin Tughlaq. Battuta wished to leave India and keep exploring, but he was stopped by the Sultan several times. After Battuta had spent 8 years in India, a group of Chinese dignitaries came to India, requesting a temple be built. Battuta joined the dignitaries on their trip back to China. The group was attacked by robbers, and Battuta was nearly killed. He turned back to southern India and stayed with an area king. He then traveled to the Maldives, and then on to Sri Lanka. Battuta then traveled to Bangladesh before reaching Indonesia. He reached China in 1345. Battuta witnessed porcelain and silk production in China, along with the building of large ships. He visited the Yellow River and Grand Canal, and heard tales of a massive wall to the north that he called the Rampart of Yajj and Majaj. It is now known he was hearing stories of the Great Wall of China. Eventually, Battuta began his trip home. In 1348, he arrived in Syria, and discovered that Black Death was ravaging the Mediterranean. He made it back home in 1349, only to discover both his parents had died. He had now been gone 24 years. After a few days at home, he set out again, this time traveling east. He reached the Strait of Gibraltar and visited parts of Spain, before heading south into the heart of West Africa. He went as far south as Nyani in present-day Guyana. He traveled to Timbuktu and returned home to Morocco in 1354. After reaching home, the Sultan urged him to write about his travels. The subsequent book is often called the Riqqa, meaning the Travels. Its full title translates to A Masterpiece to Those Who Contemplate the Wonders of Cities and the Marvels of Traveling. Ibn Battuta's travels lasted nearly 30 years, and covered 75,000 miles. He is considered one of the greatest travelers to have ever lived. Thank you.